So in the last lecture we created this sidebar here. So we first register the sidebar using the register sidebar function, and we give it a unique ID here, primary sidebar, and that created an area in the WP admin where we can drag and drop widgets in the primary sidebar. And then to display this primary sidebar, we use a function called dynamic sidebar, and we gave it the ID of the sidebar, and that's what appears here. So in this lecture we need to do pretty much the same thing, only this time it will be a little different. So here's the template that I already created to prepare for this course, and I have my footer here, and what we need to do is create multiple sidebars for each column in the footer. So we have the first column that has the recent posts widget, and it could also have another widget below this one, and the second column with the tags could also have multiple widgets, and so on. But we also need this number of columns to be dynamic. We need to get some input from the user, and depending on this input we'll have to create different number of sidebars. So what I'm proposing is we will instruct the user that they have to type a comma separated values for each column. In other words, if they, let's say, typed 3, 3, 3, 3, this will mean 4 columns, and each column will span 3 columns in our 12 column grid system. So the total of these numbers should not be more than 12. So for example, 6 and 6 would create 2 columns here, and each one will have a sidebar with its own widgets. So in this example here, this is 3 and 3 and 3 and 3. So let's do it. So first we need to register new sidebars, but this time it will be different. This time we don't know how many sidebars we need to register. And to know that, we need the user's input, right? Later in the course we'll have an entire section about how to get input from the user, for theme options and settings and stuff like that. But for now, let's just assume that we have an input from the user. So let's define a variable. I'm gonna call it photo layout, and let's hardcode it for now, and later we will create a text area where the user can type this, and then we get the user's input. So let's assume he typed 4 3s, and let's also create a new variable called photo background, and we'll hardcode it for now. So this will be either dark or light background, and then later we will create an option for the user to choose whether he needs a light footer or a dark footer. Now we need to register our sidebar, and that, as mentioned, will depend on how many numbers the user typed here. So in our case it's 4, but maybe the user will type something else. So what we can do is we can convert this variable into, instead of a comma separated string, into an array of numbers. So we can use a PSP function, explode, and this function takes a separator, which is in our case a comma, and a string, so photo layout. So this variable photo layout now will hold an array of 3 and 3 and 3 and 3, and now we can loop over this array and register a sidebar for each iteration, right? So let's call this variable columns, and then let's go ahead and create a for each loop. So for each columns as I, and then column. So I will be the index, and column will be the current number, which is 3 and 3 and 3 and so on. And for each iteration we need to register a sidebar. So register sidebar, and we'll have an array of arguments. So we've done that before. So let's actually copy these and edit them instead of typing the whole thing. So this is not primary sidebar anymore, this is a footer sidebar. But as we mentioned, this should be unique. So for each iteration, let's append the index. So I plus 1. And for the name, let's call it footer widgets and then column, and then the number. So remember how we put variables in a string that is translated and escaped? We use printf, or printf if you don't want to echo, and the second argument is the number, which is y plus 1. And the description, let's just type photo widgets, and before widget I have a class defined in CSS called photo widget, and let's remove the margin, and let's just add something that will change the color scheme of the widget. So I mentioned we'll have a photo background option here. So if the photo background is dark, we need the widget to be light, and vice versa. So let's create a new variable. Let's call it widgets, or widget theme, and then a simple if condition here. If photo background is light, then the widget theme should be dark. So I have a class called c-photo-widget-dark, and if you read about the BEM naming convention for CSS, the dash is a modifier. It changes some stuff in the component. So dark will make the widget dark, and the other one is light. So if it's not light, it's dark. So the class should be light. And then we will copy this variable and append it in the class here. So like so. We won't have to change anything here. So let's now go to the WP admin, and we should expect 4 new sidebars. So let's go to this page and refresh it, and great, we have now photo widgets column 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Let's try and maybe remove one of these, and we now only have 3 sidebars. So this is the first step, registering the sidebars. Now we need to display them. So this will be similar to what we have done in the sidebar.php, using dynamic sidebar to load the sidebar. So let's do this. So in the photo.php, let's create a new div, and I'm gonna put some classes that I styled in my CSS, so that c-photo, and then close it. We also need to access the theme options that we defined in the sidebars in the footer. We need to know the columns and the photo background also. So let's copy these, and then as I mentioned later, we will these will be dynamic. And let's open a PHP tag, PHP, and paste. So now I have access to these options. So if we have a dark background, we need a class called c-photo-, and then the photo background. So let's open a PHP tag and then echo photo background. So this will add a class photo c-photo-, dark for the dark background, and on the other hand, in the sidebar, if it's dark, it will add a class light for the widget. So now we need to create a row with columns, and the columns will depend on the user's input. So let's create a class o-container, and then another one, a row, so o-row, and then inside the row we need to create the columns. So here we will have to do a similar loop that we did here. So let's open a PHP tag and start a for each loop, for each columns as I column, and open curly braces and close PHP, and then open PHP tag and close the loop, and then inside here we'll have some HTML. So now we need to create a column which will span the current column, which will be 3 and 3 and 3 and 3. So let's go to index to copy the it's a long class here. So let's copy this one and paste it and close. And what we need to change is the span at medium. So let's open a PHP tag, and inside of it let's echo the column. So let's save, and before going further, let's see what this have done. So here we now have a footer, an empty footer, and then let's inspect and have a container row, and then we have 4 columns, each one spanning 3. So let's change one of these to 4, for example. And now we're having 3, 3, 3, and 4. Great, so let's now display the sidebar. So what we need to do is, like we did for the other sidebar, we need to check if the sidebar is active, and if so, we will display it using dynamic sidebar. So let's open a PHP tag, and if it is sidebar active, or is active sidebar, and then remember the ID was footer sidebar and then the index, right? So footer dash sidebar dash and then I plus 1. So this will check if each column in the loop is active, and then so let's close the PHP here, and if this condition is true, dynamic sidebar, and then the ID, which is the same as this one. So let's copy this and add it here, and semicolon, and this should do it. So let's go to we have an error here, and I just forgot to append here and here. So let's now go to the admin and add some widgets. So let's add the categories, and add tags, and maybe some text, and finally let's add a gallery. And let's add some images and save. And now if you refresh our website, and here we have it. So let's do something like changing the layout. So let's try 4 and 4 and 4, and we now have 3 columns, each one spanning 4 columns in the grid system. And let's try and change this to light, and we also have to change it in the sidebars. But of course, when this field is in the theme options, we won't have to change it manually. So now we have a light footer. Of course, this is not the best styling, but as I mentioned, it's not CSS or design course, so this will do. So let's get back these variables. And let's finally add the here in the finished website we have a text here, and later this text will be also dynamic from the theme options. So let's add the markup for this one. So in the footer.php, and after the cFooter class, let's add another one, and this one is called c-site-info. It also needs the background color, so see /info -- and the footer background. Close it, and then inside of it we will have also a row and a container. Let's copy these just to save some time. And we'll have a inside the row a column. So let's copy this one. Of course, if you're typing, you can pause the video and copy. So this will span 12, and it will also have a class called site-info__text. So let's close it. And let's now type some text, and later we will get this text also from the theme options. So it should look like this one now, and here it is. And finally, let's just cover an edge case. Imagine the user did not put any widgets in all the columns. So let's delete all of these, and then let's refresh. So we'll have this empty space here which looks weird. So we need to check first if all the photo sidebars are empty. We won't have to display this thing at all. So in the footer, let's create a flag and call it widgets active, and set this to false. And then we need to loop over the columns. And then check if any of them is active. So is active sidebar, and then you can copy the ID from here. So photo -sidebar the current index. If any one of them is active, we will have to set the flag to true. So widgets active equals to true. And then let's add an if condition here. It's PHP and if widgets active, or if at least one column is active, display the footer. Otherwise, we don't have to display the footer at all. And let's close it. So now we don't have any footer. And if we add just one widget, we will have it. Great. So I think this was a long lecture. Let's carry on in the next lecture.